Margot was fussing with the flowers on the side table when Dora came into the room. Dora went straight to her favorite spot in the room, on the old woven rug in front of the mirror, and she touched her hair with her fingertips, primping. Fussing, primping, each silent sister was acutely aware of the other's activity. Dora wet one fingertip and rubbed it over an eyebrow. She inspected the final result with critical scrutiny, then satisfaction, and she said, without looking over at Margot, "I'm so glad that's over." Margot felt a wave of resentment surge through her, and she momentarily considered a number of cutting replies, but she checked herself, knowing that silence was her greatest ally. Dora was impervious to insult, but unraveled if she was ignored. Dora smothered her irritation at the lack of response, then allowed her reflection to look at her sister. "You know what I mean?" she said. Margot did not feel like conversing with an image, although she considered that the flat two dimensions suited her sister perfectly. "Yes," she said non-committedly, "I suppose I do." "Well, after all," Dora said, moving away from the glass at last and waltzing around the room, oblivious to the dishes that needed to be cleared, "all those people I haven't seen for years, gushing over me, telling me how very sorry they are." "They were here, you've been away," Margot reminded her. Dora effortlessly rose above the remark and anything it might have implied. "I'm not at my best at funerals, dear, that's all there is to it. Black is definitely not my color, and somber is not my mood. I think that's why I never married. A sensible precaution. I would look so dreadful in weeds if—" Margot shut her eyes, squeezed them shut, and did not listen. She knew it was absolute nonsense, another performance. Dora lived in a world of her own. Each person can truly love only one other person in life. Margot knew that was true, and for Dora there was only Dora. Anyone else in her life was merely there to act like the mirror, to hold up an excited, glowing reflection of her wonderful good looks. But now was not the time to start an argument. Dora would never change. She would flutter through life like a butterfly, while Margot the drudge, Margot the faithful, carried on without complaint or praise. Margot picked up a glass and switched it to her bad hand. She was able to press it to her side and then carry 3 glasses in her good hand. Dora, with her healthy limbs, was not accustomed to housework. Margot was determined not to ask for assistance, but she could not help but be peevish with her spoiled, selfish sister. "I would have given anything to be married," she said, in a tone of voice that signified her chances were over. Dora picked that up. She was vain, not vacant. "Well, you could have married, any time you wanted to, you know, Margie. You have a lot," she said. "You have a lot going for you. The very soul of efficiency, that's you. There was no reason to go on feeling sorry for yourself the way you did. You carried it too far, turned it into your career." Margot stopped and thought the room was spinning before her. "Oh," she said, tears stinging her eyes, "my gracious, Dora, what a perfect monster you can be. You're so uncaring." "I'm not," Dora said, whirling and stamping her foot. "I feel the same things as anyone. I just don't show it out on my sleeve like some others do. You didn't need a man, Margie. You were quite cozy and contented without one. You had Mother and Dad all to yourself." "They needed me," Margot said. "There was no one else. I couldn't go. You certainly weren't available." "We couldn't all be expected to hang about like poor stray pups, now could we?" Dora said, challenging her sister. "The truth of it is, you needed them, not the other way round. That's exactly how it was. You were afraid to leave the nest." "How can you say such a cruel thing?" Margot cried, gasping for breath. "It's because you're mean, Dory. God gave you such remarkable beauty, but he made you wicked, mean and low inside." Dora snorted. "Don't preach to me, Margot, with your holier-than-thou. You were always the poor dear wounded bird with the withered wing. You got all the sympathy and you played for it, too, to the hilt. Don't say you didn't. I was cut off from that. What did I need? Why, nothing, of course. But Mother and Daddy doted on you, poor thing." "Don't tell me you were jealous, Dory," Margot said with a sharp, spiteful laugh. "That's too rich. I won't have you saying that. You think it's all been a lark for me, don't you, Margie? You're the one who's jealous. You are now and you always have been. Insanely. You've always told me how you loved me and wished me well, and inside I knew all the time that you were burning up with envy, wishing you could be me. No, said Margot, that's not true. Oh, yes, it is, little bird, but I'll tell you something. You could never have made it in my shoes. No way. You're not tough enough. No one gave me anything the way they did with you. So kind, so considerate, poor Margie. With me they only took. Did the men come to me, Margie? Of course they did. And what do you think they wanted? To talk? I can't listen to this, Margot said. Self-pity coming from you. It's outrageous. You only think of yourself, like always. You're so bitter, Margot. Bitter? Yes, I'm bitter. I stayed with Mother and Dad while you traveled all over the world and had a ball. The time of your life. Yes, I'm bitter. You're darn right I am. Don't blame it on me, honey. You see the facts all right, but you're drawing the wrong conclusion. You could have picked up and left any time you pleased. You see, that's the difference. You could have, Dory, but not me. That's what you didn't understand and can't appreciate. Oh, the angel of mercy, that's our Margot, Our Lady of the blissfully martyred life. No wonder Mother and Dad loved you so. They didn't love me, Dora. If only they had. I was no better than a servant girl to them, waiting on them hand and foot. You were the one they talked about. What is Dory doing? Has Dory written? Look, here's a picture of Dory in another magazine. They never knew I was here except when they wanted something. And then it was, Margot, be a good girl, and fetch. David walked in and stood in the doorway for an awkward moment. Don't let me interrupt you, he said, and then he laughed. So the truce is already over, is it? The white flag is down, the claws are out, and the cannons are booming. Sibling rivalry, ain't it grand? I should have thought we might have waited until tomorrow at least to begin firing the nasty salvos. David, please, Dora said, don't you start. Why should I miss all the fun? Oh, David, Margot said, really? You can bury the parents, but not the hatchet. That's the way it is, he said. The old animosities are a part of us like the color of our hair and eyes, height and weight. He walked over to a dish of mixed nuts and tossed a few in his mouth. Won't ever change. Don't be so superior, David, said Dora. It's very tiresome. He can't help it, Margot said. Ganging up now, are we? David said, laughing merrily. I'm not being superior, as you say, Dory, just stating a fact, plain as the nose on any face but yours. You're always stating facts, David, just trying to be helpful, in your own thoroughly overbearing way. Can we stop the carping, Margot said. No, I don't think so, David said, and then he laughed. Only fooling, Margie. Yes, of course we should. By all means, let's declare a ceasefire. Oh, yes, let's get along famously, just like the old times, Dora said. There was silence, and David grabbed another handful of nuts out of the dish. It's different without Mother and Dad, of course, he said finally. No automatic audience, said Dora. Oh, come on, David said. You should talk. I would if you'd let me, or if you'd listen for once. My God Almighty, listen to this, David said. Objections from the prima donna. You won every game, David, Margot said, and all the attention. From the very first, you were the brilliant one, the one with such promise. It was David this and David that. I can remember Mom's eyes when she'd talk about you. Her David. You got the best schools, the best of everything, Dora said. They sacrificed everything for you. Nothing was too good for you. And you hold that against me, David said, no longer laughing. I got sent away, that's what it amounted to. They gave me everything but love. Oh, my goodness, Margot said. How can you say that, David? You were everything to them. They worshipped you. David laughed sarcastically. I was something they both wanted, to achieve their idea of success, but it was not what I wanted. Nobody ever asked me what I wanted. I wasn't consulted. I complied. Dutiful David. You know what I wanted? Not so much. To play ball with Dad like the other kids, or to have Mother tuck me in at night. You were their favorite, David, Dora said firmly. I wonder you should say that, Dora. It amazes me, seeing as how you were their pet. Beautiful Dory, glamorous Dory, the living doll. You're just like Margie. You don't know what you're talking about, David, though of course you think you do. You think it's easy being beautiful. What about me? You think my life has been a joy? David, said Margot, you're a genius. It's always been easier for you. Ha, David said, but it was no laugh. 10 years in analysis, 2 marriages, both failed, 2 children I almost never see, some genius. You know what people have always expected from me? Try the impossible, that's all. You were the lucky one, Margot. Oh, please, she said, tears welling in her eyes. That's so painful. No, it's not. It's true. They loved you the most. Maybe you deserved it. I don't know. Like hell they did, Margot shouted enraged. I can't take this from the 2 of you, and I won't. They never gave me a second thought. Nothing for Margot, ever. I was scenery to them, that's all. Don't you dare tell me different, because I was here. I know. It was always Dory and David. David and Dory. And Carl. There was a silence in the room again until David spoke. It was only natural. He was the baby. He was all they thought about, Dora said, even before. He's our responsibility now, Margot said, snapping. What are we going to do? I'm expected back at the Institute on Monday, David said. I'm scheduled for a shoot in New York, Dora said. I have to leave tonight. You expect me to take over, Margot said. No, Dora said coldly. Stop your whining. You can do what you want now. Don't use Carl as an excuse like you used Mother and Dad. That would be too pathetic, Margot, even for you. You're free. You've always been. Oh, Margot said, starting to cry again. Why do I bother, said Dora. Because you're such a tender-hearted soul, David said, walking over to Margot and putting his arms around her. I'll talk to the doctors before I leave, Margie. Carl will go on as he has. There's no reason to expect any change in his condition. He'll outlive us all, Margot said, weeping quietly. It's so ironic, Dora said. Mother and Dad forgot everything else after the accident. It was as if the rest of us had vanished. It overwhelmed them, both of them, David said. They never got over it. It's true, Margot said, drying her eyes on the hanky David had given her. They loved him so. He was the lucky one, David said.